honor.
Awesome.
What did I do to deserve this honor?
Well, you just have to do a little kizomba and stay fly. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I don't really like talking about myself much, but when I was 19 years old, I found myself lying in a pool of my own blood, and as I was taking my last breaths, certain that I was dying, I asked God to give me a second chance. And I woke up in the hospital. I got that second chance. I spent 6 months rehabilitating to learn to walk and move again. I'd had a near fatal motorcycle accident while I was living in Richmond, Virginia, driving at insane speeds with the police chasing me. And I had lost control of my motorcycle and was somersaulting through the air and sliding the to the ground at 120 miles per hour. Wow. Yeah, it was pretty treacherous.
That's close to 200 kilometers or something.
220 up there. Ridiculous. So, I've got all of these scars or cuts under here and parts of my body that I can't show you.
Yeah.
But, as I was fading away and literally certain of my death, I remember thinking that I'm only 19 years old. I've always felt like there is important work for me to do. I think we all share an inherent internal voice that lets us feel our significance, our importance, that there's something that needs to come out of us. I like to call it music. And that music needs to get out of us somehow and expressed and shared with the world. And I was very sure that at 19 years old, I hadn't let nearly enough of that music out of me yet. And I was perplexed that I was dying. And all when you feel like you're dying, everything speeds up. You really get present. Time tends to slow down and stop. And you're wondering how can you have so many thoughts in such a short period of time, because literally you're stopping time. And I remember thinking, oh shit, my mother's gonna pass out when she finds out her only son has died in a motorcycle accident in a city 3 hours away from where she was. And I also remember thinking, I'm only 19 years old. There's got to be more my life was to be about than what I had done up until that point. And 3, if I could only get a second chance, that I would wake up each moment completely living, completely experiencing, exploring, and sharing, and learning, and growing, and influencing others. I really felt there was something important for me to do, and I just knew it hadn't happened at 19. But why am I now dying and lying in a pool of my own blood? So that's when I cried out for that second chance. I got that second chance, my friend. And since then, I've been all out. I'm going to be all out. Because that was the promise I made in that moment. And, I feel blessed and fortunate to get a second chance. The value of life often is proportionate to the void in life. So it's often when you're losing something that you begin to value it. And as I was losing my life, it's when I found value. Prior to that,
You were just living.
I was playing small. I wasn't even living. That's the whole thing. I wasn't living. That was the issue. I was not living. I was existing. And I knew that I felt that I needed to live and learn and grow and share and express. I had never even been in love with anybody at that time. I'd never traveled outside of my small state. Hadn't been too far from my own state. Grew up in Virginia, very country boy in very rural areas. 6 months prior to that, I had moved to the big city, Richmond, Virginia. Yes. So, from there began a whole series of obedience. When people hear about my story, they often label it as courageous. I think it's more obedient than courageous. I just began to get tapped into a guiding force that I became obedient to. When that force and when that message and that voice speaks,
Yes, sir.
yes, sir. And that's how I ended up in Ghana. Well, at first, through the injuries of that motorcycle accident, I was with the rehab. I was having back problems and all types of issues, and I was in school at the time at Virginia Commonwealth University, and I had a study partner, Melissa Phillips, and she was helping me get through school because I was missing classes and things. And she started to work for this chiropractor. I'd never heard of really chiropractor before. I knew they had something to do with the back. You had a car accident, you go see this chiropractor or something. But I didn't know much about it. I wanted to be either a brain surgeon, or plus I wanted to go into prosthetics and orthotics, so I could, people who had limbs that were blown off, I could help design limbs for them to be able to walk and move their body again. Or I wanted to be a brain surgeon, because that just sounded interesting. And I thought of chiropractic as a small profession at the time. But she was always talking about this chiropractor she works for. She's fascinated by this work she's doing. She's very passionate and excited about that. And then one day, she told her chiropractor, her doctor, that she had a friend she wanted to meet who had had a motorcycle accident. And she had been bragging about me a little bit. And the doctor says, well, I'll tell you what, if he will come and spend a day in my office seeing what I do, exploring chiropractic, I would take his x-rays for free.
Wow.
And provide him care that particular day.
Wow.
As a broke black student, it's a minority in Virginia, that sounds good to me. Free.
What's the doctor's name again?
Dr. William Ashworth.
Wow.
He was in Ashland, Virginia, slightly north of Richmond, Virginia. His wife, Janet. And the wife was an Indian lady, and Dr. Ashworth was a Caucasian man. My study partner, Melissa, was a very wealthy Caucasian girl as well. I think she was a daughter of like a senator or something. And so I show up, Melissa picks me up, takes me to her chiropractor's office, and as I'm walking up the sidewalk very slowly because I was in excruciating pain from this motorcycle accident, another Caucasian lady walking in the direction I was going towards the doctor's office walks past me in a hurry and kind of brushes me, takes me off my balance, and creates me excruciating pain. So I kind of like screamed. And she turned around and apologized, and she had tears flowing from her eyes. Prior to that, you see, she'd been crying for a while. And I couldn't understand what, kind of strange. Somebody's crying publicly and walking toward the doctor's office. So she said she apologized, and she went on into the doctor's office. A few minutes later, I walked up the steps and got into the doctor's office. By the time I got into the lobby, she was waiting in the waiting room, and the doctor, who's Caucasian, married to an Indian lady, walks around into the waiting room. And as I walk through the door, I see the doctor walking from around the corner, and this lady who had just knocked me off my stance jumped up into his arms, screaming, "I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. Dr. Ashworth, I'm pregnant. I'm finally pregnant." Now I'm thinking to myself, this doctor has been doing something with his patients. Embracing. Because I knew the wife was Indian.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's about to go down in here. The mistress is coming to confront the doctor, and she's pregnant. Oh, it's about to happen in here.
That was your drama
That
mind
was my
kicking
first
off.
thought going through my head. But he saw that me and the other people in the waiting room, which happened to be about 15 people, quite a few people waiting for him, were kind of shocked by this incident that was about to go down. So he then calms her down, and she wipes her face off and tells her to tell the people waiting in the waiting room what has happened. And I remember her telling her story, and she was like 40 years old. She was on her third marriage, which was on the rocks, because she wasn't able to have a child, or she wasn't able to get pregnant. She had tried everything under the sun to try to get pregnant, but someone had told her to go see a chiropractor, and she showed up at this doctor's office. And 3 months after receiving care from him, she was pregnant. And she was attributing her ability to get pregnant to something this doctor was doing to her. And it made no sense to me. Now, mind you, I was, a bit of an arrogant medical student going to school for medicine. So what's this subcategory, this alternative thing that this lady's claiming has helped her to get pregnant. It's one thing to be pushing on the back to get rid of some back pain, but it's another for people to be getting pregnant. What's the connection? That didn't make sense to me. So that day, that morning, I followed him around his office. I sat down and he was taking care of his patients. He introduced every one of his patients to me, and they all had a story. Very few of them was about neck pain and back pain and waist pain. Most of them was about health conditions, people with diabetes and gout and fertility, little children with asthma, and all types of things that perplexed me. And at lunchtime, he brought me to his office and he said, "Marcus, what do you think?" I said, "Well, this is quite fascinating." And he began to explain to me what he does as a doctor, a chiropractor. And I remember it was so simple and sweet that it just blew my mind. He said something like this: "Well, Marcus, the body was made by God to function and heal on its own, all by itself." And I asked him, what does it have to do with what he does? He said, well, the body heals through the nervous system. The brain communicates to all the cells and tissues of the body through the nervous system. 77 trillion cells of the body, all under the control of one master, one commander-in-chief, the brain and the nervous system. And he said, if there's interference in this nervous system, then the body will begin to malfunction. You remember him saying that nature and the body didn't need any help, just no interference. And he says if there's interference in the nervous system, then there's interference in the body's ability to heal, repair, and maintain itself. A light bulb went off in my head. Bing! Significance, impact, life and death. And all of the things I really felt my life was supposed to be about, I now had a profession or a name that I could go and serve and express this greatness which I thought I was losing when I was dying so many months earlier. I immediately began making plans to move from Richmond, Virginia to Atlanta, Georgia. Didn't know anybody in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was going there by any means necessary.